Good morning. So yesterday we talked about Kadesh, the dual nature of it being firstly Kiddush for the Chag and also one of the four cups, and the earliest time to start the Seder. Now, the Hachamim tell us in the Gemara that, generally speaking, Kiddush is to be done over red wine. They bring a pasuk for this, and from this pasuk in Mishlei, they say that wine by default is meant to be red, and therefore, in the first instance, mitzvah min hamufhar at least, it's the better way of having red wine rather than white wine. Although, if the white wine is more expensive, it's more desirable to a person, he prefers white wine rather than red wine, then a person can do kiddush and the four cups on white wine. However, when it comes to Pesach, though, Hachamim say that actually we have red wine. And the reason being of the red wine is that various reasons. Firstly, it's a reminder of the Midrash, which tells us that Paro used to slaughter the Jewish children and bathe in their blood to heal himself from his leprosy. And for some reason, this cured him, and he would use the Jewish children. To remember this, we do it, and also to remember the plague of blood, we used red wine. And therefore, generally speaking, on Pesach, unless a person, some people have migraines from red wine. And so in such a case, of course, they can do the mitzvah of Kiddush and the mitzvah of Bakosot with white wine. But generally speaking, we use red wine or grape juice on Pesach night rather than white to remember the blood of Egypt. The Keter Shem Tov, Rav Gagin, who was the rabbi of the Spanish and Portuguese about 100 years ago, he writes an interesting story about blood libels. So he writes that in 100, this story took place 112 years ago. So this was in 1912. He was, at the time, before he came to London, he was in Cairo in Egypt. He was one of the Dayanim in Egypt. And he, together with his colleagues, the Dayanim, they went to bake matzot after Hatzot on Erev Pesach. That's a very old minhag, that you bake matzot for Pesach after Hatzot. And aside from baking the matzot for Pesach, for the Seder night, they would also bake matzah ashira. Matzah ashira is matzah which rises more than 18 minutes, but it's made from fruit juices, from anything aside from water. So either from fruit juices, pure fruit juices, or wine. And we Sfaradim have matzah ashira. Literally means rich matzah. That means thick matzah, because it's been made with other things aside from water, and that doesn't become hametz even if it's allowed to rise more than 18 minutes. And so aside from baking the matzot for Pesach, they would also bake matzah ashira. And they would bring wine and they would bring different things. And one of the people there, his name was Rav Yosef Antebi, who was from Damascus. He had come to bake his matzot as well, like the other hachamim who had come there. But he brought a bottle of wine, but he hid it in his coat because he was concerned that one of the non-Jewish people working there would touch it and it would become yayin nesech. It would become wine which is no longer permissible for Jewish people to drink if a non-Jew touched it, if it's not mavushal. And so he was hiding this wine in his coat, and he was taking it out from it in order to pour into the matzah, into the dough, in order to make matzah ashira. And some of the workers saw this, and they saw him constantly taking out from his bottle, hidden under his cloak, some red substance. And as we know, in Damascus and in Aleppo, there were various blood libels, even in the Middle East, blood libels that around Pesach time, the Jewish people would take blood, despite the fact that Torah tells us in numerous places it's forbidden to drink blood. It's a serious prohibition. Nonetheless, this blood libel has been going on for centuries across the world, not just in Europe, but in the Middle East as well. There are famous blood libels in Damascus. And they saw this, and they suspected him that he had blood in his bottle, and he was using it to bake the matzot. And they went and they called the police that this rabbi here, he has blood of non-Jewish children and he's baking the matzot with them. And the police came and they were going to take everyone into prison, and then they interrogated everyone, and they finally saw that actually it was all wine. And the Keter Shem Tov of Gagin finishes off and he says, yes, Baruch Hashem, after all of this, we still managed to find the time to be able to bake the matzot with Hallel and with thanksgiving to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for this. And so the point of this story is that the poskim writes already earlier before him is that in places where there are blood libels, then actually you don't have to use red wine, you can use white wine, because people, unfortunately, assume the worst when it comes to mitzvot, which we do. And that's just something interesting I want to share. But in short, we preferably use red wine unless a person finds it difficult to drink red wine, then he can use white wine. Or if there is a suspicion of a person being accused of using blood for his seder, then of course, then to the poskim right, then you use white. Have a wonderful day.